Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today I want to talk about some commonly brought up points in sort of like opposition and criticism of Star Citizen, some of which the Forbes article brought up, as well as others I see banded around Star Citizen sort of comment sections and Reddits. Star Citizen running out of money, Cloud Imperium don't give refunds, they break promises, feature creep, games never coming out, and stuff like that. This is not a video in defense of Star Citizen. I suppose it kind of is, but it's more of a debunking and discussion of some of what I believe is unfair criticism and accusations of the project, and some of which is more reasonable, and we'll talk about that as well. Let's start with the money. Is Star Citizen running out of money? Well, at the end of 2018, Star Citizen released their financial breakdown of their company, funding, headcounts, and more, all the way until the end of 2017. Their financials show that by the end of 2017, Cloud Imperium had $14.2 million in the bank. In comparison, it had 19.3 at the end of 2015 and 19.2 at the end of 2016. So, they had spent 5 million more than they had earned in 2017. Now, is that good? Or is that bad? Or is that just, you know, they spent the money? According to the funding charts, Star Citizen made 37.75 million in 2018 on sort of like ship sales and that sort of stuff. But also, they made additional money on subscriptions and other revenue. So that's sort of like brand deals and things like that, sponsors. 2018 was their best year yet for sales. Combined with the subs and other revenue, it's probably around 47 million that they earned in 2018, plus an additional 46 million private investment. So, Star Citizen is spending its funding. It's spending it on employees, it's spending it on studio costs, it's spending it on developing the game, and to some extent, sort of like the marketing of that game. You can see like Citizen Con and ship sales and things like that as marketing as well, for sure, because that's how they draw in a huge amount of their revenue. Now, Star Citizen has, by my estimates, got 50 to 65 million in the bank currently. They do seem to be spending within the money they sort of received. They did spend 5 million extra than they received in 2017. I'd be interested to see the 2018 figures for exactly how much their studio costs were. Whatever money they have in the bank, around 46 million is at least lightly earmarked for advertising of Star Citizen and Squadron 42's potential 2020 release, or at least starting to gear up for that, though I suspect some of that will be used or can be used for development if necessary. I don't see how you can say that Star Citizen is running out of money based on those sort of like numbers. They do need to release a product at some point. They do need to release finished games. They can't just go on developing forever, but it does look like they want to potentially release Squadron 42 next year in 2020, and they are releasing Star Citizen every 3 months with a new sort of like updated playable alpha. Another common accusation is one of nepotism, that Chris Roberts and Sandy, who is VP of Marketing, Sandy, his wife, and Aaron Roberts, his brother, studio director of the UK office, are pocketing all of the money. You could certainly argue, successfully, that he's given them high-paid, good positions in the company. Yeah, that's what he's done with those people. We don't actually have the figures on how much Chris gets paid or specific employees get paid. Only a breakdown of how many employees that Cloud Imperium had in 2017, which is 464, and how much they paid all employees in total, including Chris and Sandy and Aaron, which is around $13 million. This puts the average earnings of employees at the time at around 64.6 thousand a year. Now, that's in dollars. Now expect a range of salaries ranging from, I know, 25,000 all the way up to 150,000 for upper management, janitors, senior positions, or sort of like in between there. Chris Roberts said in the Forbes article that he was compensated like a C-suite level game executive. This is certainly vague, but it appears that this is typically around 250 to 350,000, looking at average earnings in a year. And you certainly can see CEOs and CFOs in the sort of like EA and giant companies making millions a year. Now that is typically bonuses on their wages. Chris does own most of the shares for Star Citizen, so if it does really, really well, and hopefully it will, he will stand to make millions and millions of dollars in the future. He can give himself dividends based on money he earns from selling actual copies of the game once that game is released. It's unlikely that Chris is paying himself and his family a huge amount, especially as that would knock down the average of the rest of the employees working for the company to peanuts. As we can see, they don't earn a huge amount. Chris brought a house with backer money is something else that is talked about. It was in the Forbes article. This is, I suppose, partly true. He earns a wage from the company, and he may have used some of that money to buy a house. From the Forbes article, in September 28, the Roberts Family Trust, with Gardner as the trustee, purchased a house for $4.7 million in LA's Pacific Palisades neighborhood. Prior to that, Roberts had been renting. Roberts says that he sold his Hollywood house in 2007 because he wanted to experience living near the ocean. He then rented for 10 years because he wasn't sure if he would like it or he was going to stay in LA long term. Now, Chris says that he was quite wealthy in his own right before he started with Star Citizen. He was a partner at Origin, which EA bought in 1992 for $37 million, and he was paid as the majority owner of Digital Anvil when Microsoft acquired it. It also looks like the rent on his previous property was around $18,000 a month, and the new house he bought, he could have got a mortgage, according to the interwebs, for around $16,000 a month. Obviously, I don't have the exact details of how much they were paying, because I'd have to ask Chris and he'd have to give me statements or something, but that's how much it appears to be looking on a quick Google search. To me, that looks like a saving. He saved backers money. Well, you see what you see what I mean? He's actually saved money there, and, you know, he gets paid a wage. He's allowed to buy a house. He hasn't grabbed, as far as I'm aware, all that money out of Star Citizen's bank account. Star Citizen's refund policy, and Star Citizen doesn't give refunds, is also something that is touted around a lot. Star Citizen's refund policy, based on their terms of service, is that you can get a refund within 14 days for any individual pledge made. However, their company policy actually seems to extend to 30 days refunds with no questions asked, regardless of playtime. And outside that window, they have a case-by-case refunds policy. That policy is significantly better than, say, Steam's, which gives refunds within 2 weeks of a purchase and with less than 2 hours of playtime. Now, issues have obviously been when backers have spent tens of thousands of dollars on ships and then suddenly decided years afterwards that they aren't getting what they wanted, or they need the money back or whatever. And in some cases, backers feel that they haven't been given what they wanted, or the development's too slow, or there's been changes to what they originally backed. And I certainly sympathise with those people. How much has Star Citizen actually raised now, though? I had previously thought the Forbes article was inaccurate with its estimate of Star Citizen raising $288 million. I actually said it was lower than this, adding it all up. I've since looked into the numbers further. The Star Citizen funding chart shows just under $227 million. However, this does not take into account $46 million private investment, nor do I believe subscriptions, which are around $15 million. There are also other incomes from other sources, incentives, partnership deals, that sort of stuff, which may be around $28 million. That appears to be roughly $315 million, though it is reasonably estimated. That's probably pretty accurate, though, for up to the end of May 2019. Let's move on to questions of scams and mismanagement. Star Citizen is empirically and provably not a scam. You'd have to be very, very, very generous with your redefinition of the term scam and the moving of goalposts to fit your narrative to say that it was. Has the project been mismanaged? Have there been broken promises? Yes, but that's true of any company. To what extent, and is this currently a problem, I suppose, are the more pressing questions. Star Citizen has been in development since 2011, 8 years. Is something I commonly see chucked around in sort of like, why hasn't it got further in its development? Now, this is kind of true. It has been at least conceived and planned by Chris since 2011. However, after its successful Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaign, they started to plan out the rest of the game in earnest from 2013. The game then had a massive rework and rescope in 2015 due to a massive amount of money coming in from crowdfunding and the selling of ships for the persistent universe, and the fact that there was a load of new game tech and stuff like that. They wanted to make a great game for the modern age. The game massively changed in plans for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, effectively having large portions of the game starting from the beginning again. They threw out a load of the old stuff, they reused what they could, but they literally rebuilt huge portions of the game. Star Citizen and Squadron 42 in their current forms have only really started in 2015, in my opinion, in their development process, at least beyond concepts and tech demos. I'll put this in a little bit more perspective because a large portion of what Cloud Imperium had done is built a game studio, community, and proof of concept for their game, as well as a funding model. In 2012, Cloud Imperium had 13 employees. In 2013, 58. 2014, 179. In 2015, 263. In 2016, 369. In 2017, 464. Today, there are over 550 employees, and there are currently 112 jobs available on the Cloud Imperium website. So we can conclude that there are plans to have over 650 staff. This shows a gearing up of the company, and they didn't have 500 plus employees in 2012. They had 13. They didn't have $200, $315, whatever, in 2012. That has been gearing up over many years. I do expect, however, once Squadron 42 Episode 1 is released, we might actually see contracts not renewed for some workers in the company. Maybe they will, and that's just entirely speculative, go down to around 550, 500 employees again from whatever number they're trying to currently hit. Well, sort of around 650 it looks like. Feature creep is something often talked about in regard to Star Citizen. In 2015, we did see procedural planets get added to the mix, which is something they wanted to have in the game, but not this early in development. It was something that was sort of like going to be added after the game's released or much further in the future. However, they saw a huge amount of potential in the procedural tech, and 2015 saw a huge amount of what can be considered feature creep as the game scaled up. It added multiple years to the game's development. Since 2015, there arguably hasn't been any massive forms of feature creep, at least certainly nowhere near as much as the re-gearing that 2015 saw. There has certainly been additions, evolutions, and iterations of gameplay mechanics and their tech, and lots of reworks, which have definitely slowed down the progress of the development of the game. It might make for an amazing game in the end, it might not. We don't 100% know. It's certainly taking a good amount of time though. I do genuinely think that there's going to be some greatness coming from Star Citizen, lots of greatness. And you could certainly look at mechanics like outpost building, caves, and say that they are feature creep, definitely. However, this is partly fulfillment of features that they've planned and then filling out the game. And the evolution of these sort of like gameplay mechanics does make them go, oh, we should add this to add some more gameplay area. We should have these outposts here. We should have caves. We should have procedural roads. They're going to keep on expanding and improving their procedural tech and all their gameplay mechanics. Would you consider adding different types of missions and mission modules as sort of like feature creep, or would you just consider that as fleshing out the game? I think people are more sensitive to feature creep because of the way that Star Citizen is developed and that they're quite visible with their roadmaps and the changes on there. Any changes and additions can be seen as feature creep because of that. And some probably are, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no feature creep in Star Citizen. I'm saying that it is kind of part of their development and they are starting to deliver on a lot of what they had planned. The game might never be finished and never released is a common headline or buzz phrase. It's an interesting one as well, as this can literally be made as a statement for any game that is currently in development. However, it's an odd thing to say about Star Citizen at this stage, which now has a playable alpha and releases major updates to that alpha every quarter. Also, Squadron 42 Episode 1 is planned to be in beta for 2020 and potentially release that year as well. Star Citizen's persistent universe is likely to be a good few years away from anything near a released product though, but it's just an interesting thing to say about Star Citizen. It's treated as if it's not playable at all, and it very much is. Star Citizen and breaking promises. I read a lot of comments about Star Citizen breaking promises. Where are the 100 systems that they promised? The game was supposed to be released years ago. I also see people defending or trolling with phrases like, you don't understand game development. For me, it's more of there's a lack of understanding of Star Citizen's way of developing their game, which is genuinely pretty unique. And I'm sorry to say that if that sounds like a troll. It's iterative, it's evolving, and therefore it is constantly changing. They produce roadmaps and give their community a large portion of the most up-to-date plans and thoughts on the game and how mechanics will work, at least for the most part. It's agile development as well. These things do change as to priorities, scheduling, items are often pushed back in favor of others, delayed to the next quarter, some things are brought forward, and that all appears on the roadmap. If you take everything that Cloud Imperium say they've planned to do, or having a patch, or what their original Kickstarter was, and when they changed and evolved the game and expanded the scope, then they've broken hundreds, if not thousands, of promises, and will continue to do so. They have stated for many years, though, that things in their game's development are going to be in flux, and they keep on changing them, and they will go for the best possible way of doing something. That's the idea. They want the game to be as perfect as possible. I mean, for the persistent universe, that is a very vague statement, and it's all based on iteration anyway, so that it's mind-blowing. This might be annoying and occasionally heartbreaking, but it's one of the double-edged swords of the way that Cloud Imperium have done their open development. You get to see some of their plans. It generates hype, it gets them a lot of funding, definitely, but it does break hearts when they change some things. Even if they come up with two different ways of doing something, whatever way they decide to do it, it will certainly upset some of the community. Even if they go for the better way, the better looking way, or whatever, some other people will prefer it done the other way. In regard to that open development, Cloud Imperium are incredibly transparent with their project, weekly shows, news, presentations, more recently good community interaction from devs answering questions, and even exposing their financials now. This does not mean open doors to everything in the project though. They keep things back for surprises, marketing, most of the Squadron 42 stuff they keep hidden, and historically have been poor at communicating with certain things. Especially when they've talked about like having things like trying to sell digital tickets for CitizenCon, the referrals competition that they did, selling land claims. These are all things that they should have talked to the community about before changing. Even stuff with like the flight model and some of the evolution of some gameplay mechanics, I desperately wish they'd talk more about the community too before changing them. I would very much like to see as well more information on their current plans for science, medical, farming, exploring, all those sort of gameplay loops, all the other ones that they've sort of like said that were going to be in the game. How are all the ships going to interact with them? We know that the development of these will evolve, but I would like to see their current design documents, their current thoughts on how this will all interact with each other. That's the sort of reason I'm participating in the project in the level that I am. I want to see this stuff evolve, but I want to be involved with it. Sometimes Cloud Imperium's approach is a bit erratic. It seems with the sort of like, look at this cool hype thing. This thing might happen, and there's going to be cool gameplay behind it, but we're not going to tell you all of it. And then sometimes they're like, we don't want to share our thoughts on this, otherwise people might get disappointed when it's not like that. And it just seems erratic in that approach. Whatever your thoughts, I think Star Citizen is probably the most open AAA development project game I've ever seen, though I am willing to look at others if people have differing opinions on that. I do think it's pretty good at communicating now, Star Citizen, as well. I think previous to 2016, it has been poor when it comes to communication with backers. Not at every stage, but at some of the stages. When it comes to Star Citizen and pre-2016 as well, I do believe that there was a lot of gearing up with the company. Chris Roberts had reportedly been a micromanager of people, which would have been fine when they had 13 employees or even 58 employees in 2013, but not appropriate when they have hundreds. Problems with Star Citizen have largely been solved, or at least are much more able to be dealt with in their more developed studio, and they have plans for the game and much better practices behind what they previously had. When I read about the hell that some studios are currently going through now, and are regularly in the news for that, like even today you can just go on YouTube and see a huge swathe of companies, I don't know how to say that word, that sort of like have issues and terrible problems. And then you look at Star Citizen now. Star Citizen hasn't got that much in the way terrible for it at the moment. It's got mostly manageable issues. Yeah, it's not released yet. There's been massive delays with that sort of like development process, but it is starting to deliver. It certainly had problems a few years ago, Star Citizen. And Star Citizen's Alpha 3.5 Live was not the best update that Cloud Imperium have put out. It did break some gameplay loops. It added some amazing technical features and some amazingly cool gameplay areas, but with the new flight model and a load of problems with the AI and the servers and things like that and lots of bugs, it was quite annoying. It did break some of the stuff that I enjoyed in 3.4. But one of the joys of the project being released every 3 months in major updates and minor updates in between is that they do try to fix things like that. We've got 3.5.1 coming out hopefully really soon. At the end of June, we've got 3.6. Now, the game should be in a significantly better state by then. At least that's the hope. There is still a huge amount to do with their game, and the development is going to take a while longer. But being part of that game, process, community, and having my say on how features evolve is why I love it so much, and probably why it brings in more backers and money each year. Star Citizen is a fantastical project, and it is interesting to watch its dramas unfold as much as it is to play the game, participate in an organization. The elements of toxicity that you typically get in any gaming community, or any community at all, I suppose, is interesting with Star Citizen, as it's more sort of like polarized at both ends, in the sort of like, you have people that are very, very, very pro Star Citizen, and will defend it, and it's not people's duty to defend Star Citizen at all, certainly. And then there's the people, other part of the Star Citizen community, some of which don't even play the game, whatever, who just aggressively troll and try and get a rise, typically out of the first group of people that I mentioned. However, 99.9%, and that is a number and figure that I'm pulling out of my ass, of people that I interact with in Star Citizen are amazing. And I literally, this is the best gaming community I've ever been part of. I love it so much, and I've been part of big WoW communities and EVE Online and things like that, and games throughout my life. I'm a proper old school gamer. I say old school as you can be, being mid-30s nowadays, which is pretty retro. I don't know anymore. I'm sort of ranting. I will be doing a video talking about the perils of Star Citizen's development and things that I personally do think need to be watched, or at least discussed, to keep Cloud Imperium on track, honest, however you want to call it, like continued funding, pay to win, the potential restrictions of server meshing, aspects of gameplay loops in the future, unrealistic hype and expectations about certain things. Oh, just as a quick little side note, one of the other comments I saw a lot online or on comment sections was Star Citizen's going to be another No Man's Sky. Well, good. No Man's Sky is one of the greatest redemption projects in the industry. They, after basically lying effectively about their sales and what their game had in store for the first release and stuff like that, even while people were playing it, and they got a load of backlash from that, and there was the bad release and it wasn't sold on its features and things like that. They literally kept their heads down and then kept improving their game until they had a pretty damn good game as of 2019. I quite enjoy No Man's Sky now. I think it's got some great features. Hopefully, though, with the way that Star Citizen's being developed, it can avoid all of that and literally keep us up to date with what they've got planned as it's happening. And we can have very good feedback and get a good game before it's released. At least that's the idea. I do realise this was an incredibly long video, especially for my channel that's not gameplay, so I appreciate you watching this. I would love to hear from you. I know some of the topics I've mentioned might be polarizing, but please be civil. You're allowed to have different opinions from other people. You're allowed to talk. You're allowed to have a conversation, and please be civil to each other. And I'm happy to take criticism or be proved wrong on some of my points, so please feel free to point that out to me. But I'd say I'm largely aware of all of Star Citizen's gripes and warts and all on the project, and I love it anyway. I love what they're doing with it. I love how the game is developing, and I love being part of that process. And yeah, there's almost certainly going to be gameplay loops and parts of the game I do not like once they are done. But I also am pretty damn sure there's going to be a load of elements of the game that I'm going to be super excited about. And those are the sort of like things I will be playing and covering in a bit more detail once they're in the game. I will be spending probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands and thousands of hours doing economy and mining and silly things like that. I used to love EVE Online, and now I've got a lot of love for the future of Star Citizen. Every month we have a ship giveaway on the channel for May 2019. It's for another Drake Corsair exploration ship, donated in the name of the People's Radio. They are a 24/7 radio station providing music in the verse news and in lore commercials, and are operated by the People's Alliance of Levski. To be in for a chance of winning that ship, be subscribed to my YouTube channel and comment on any of my videos made during the month. Links to the People's Radio and more information on the giveaway in the description below. If you are looking for a gaming PC or to upgrade, then instead consider Shadow Cloud gaming PCs, which leverage your internet connection and a data center to turn any device, your old PC, a phone, a tablet, a laptop, whatever, into a powerful Windows 10 gaming environment. It's subscription-based, so won't break the bank, and is a fantastic alternative to buying your own PC. If you are looking for a VPN, then I use NordVPN as well. It's mega cheap, allows me to upload, play games, browse with more security and privacy than I would otherwise have. For both of those, links are below, and use the code BoredGamer to receive a discount on either. BoredGamer is supported by its community via Patreon, the YouTube join button, Subscribestar, Twitch, direct donations, people throwing ships at me. A massive thank you to everyone that goes the extra mile to support me. It genuinely does help. Just like everything else, links are below for people that would like to get involved with that as well. But if you want to give feedback, there are details there that you can get onto my Discord, discord.gg/BoredGamer, or contact@boredgamer.co.uk if you want to send me an email. Just get in contact, give me feedback. Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you.